Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, and, this is a weird show for a lot of reasons. For one, I'm very clearly not in my studio. For two, I'm actually recording with my phone right now. I'm not kidding. I don't know what it's going to come out like, so we'll see what happens. I'm obviously not using a regular mic. I'm just using my phone mic, so hopefully I sound clear enough and sound okay. For some reason, the Wi-Fi with my computer is not working terribly well where I'm staying. So there's that, and there's the fact that my Pittsburgh Steelers dropped a game to the, at the time, 2-10 and now 3-10 New England Patriots, led by Bailey Zappi at quarterback, and all the chaos in Foxborough, and they came into Acrisure Stadium, Heinz Field, whatever the flip it's called these days. And knocked us off. I'll get into that game in just a second. I also want to discuss LeBron James and what he did last night. Just a spectacular performance against the New Orleans Pelicans in the in-season tournament semifinal. Also, Sean McDermott. Some pretty scathing reports coming out of Buffalo from the last few years of when how long he's been the head coach of the Bills. And of course, the end of the show, Week 14 NFL predictions, including upset of the week, if I were a Bettin Man, and Bryson's Bleak bets. So again, I'm going to try and do the show to the best of my ability. But of course, today's show is not live. And so as I always say when it's a pre-recorded show, if there's anything that's happened in the world of sports, I am aware, just not the time that you're watching me. And reportedly, there's some Shohei Ohtani news that's supposed to break today. Maybe it's already broken. If it has, and he's went to Toronto, then I am just devastated. So this is just devastation upon devastation. Let's start with the first devastation. But first, Pittsburgh Steelers lost to the New England Patriots 21-18, and it is the first time in the history of the National Football League that a team above 500, which the Pittsburgh Steelers, evidently that's the only standard these days, just to barely not suck, or barely not be mediocre, so to speak. But the first time in NFL history, a team over 500 has lost back-to-back games to two teams that are 8 games below 500. It's never happened in the history of the NFL. It's happened to the Pittsburgh Steelers in a span of 5 days, losing to the Arizona Cardinals 24-10 on Sunday, and even worse, losing to the Bailey Zappi-led, Bill Belichick-coached New England Patriots. It was so bad of a game for New England, from a primetime perspective, that Amazon marketed the game as T.J. Watt and the Steelers versus Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots, because evidently New England doesn't have a player good enough to market, although Ezekiel Elliott was pretty good last night. So I will say now what I have said all season long about the Steelers. In full disclosure, this is, after all, my first year as a Steelers fan. Just to be completely honest with y'all, I ditched the Dallas Cowboys as the team I root for, although I still obviously root for their quarterback, Dak Prescott, to win games at the highest level. But I'm like, this offseason, I need a team. And I picked the Pittsburgh Steelers, did like a whole big reveal. It was very, very exciting. But throughout this season, when I and some other Steelers fans thought that the offense might jump to new leaps, it is just as bad, if not worse, than the offense a year ago, which you could say, hey, last year, rookie quarterback Kenny Pickett, some quarterback back and forth, Trubisky started some games. It happens, okay? The Steelers are moving on from Big Ben, and they're in the exact same spot as they were a year ago. Why? This is not going to be very popular in Pittsburgh, I might imagine. Mike Tomlin. Now, full disclosure, I do not view Mike Tomlin as a coach in the same sense as I do Belichick in terms of his inability to adjust to the modern times. He hasn't adjusted, but not to the level that Belichick hasn't. Belichick can't even – now, Belichick's in charge of the draft, obviously. Coach Belichick can't even draft a reasonably good wide receiver or pick one in free agency. Steelers are good at both. When George Pickens does get the ball in his hands, which is rare these days, which is infuriating, I know for all of Steelers fans, including myself, but when he gets the ball in his hands, he can do some special things. Deontay Johnson, nice player on the outside. Jalen Warren, who I think might have been undrafted. Mike Tomlin found a diamond in the rough there in the Steelers front office did. Najee Harris. They have some productive players offensively. But when you're talking about an organization in Pittsburgh where Mike Tomlin has religiously stated, the standard is the standard. I love that phrase because it's like the bar we set for ourselves, that's what we're going for. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly profound. And Mike Tomlin is always one for a great moment at the mic, unlike Bill Belichick, of course. But the Steelers have been one of the least successful organizations in terms of playoff success in the last nearly decade. And I'd remind you, Steelers fans and NFL fans, our last playoff win, Obama was still president. Dead serious. 2016, this was right before, I think it was right before Trump came in office, but it was at the end of the 2016 season, went to Arrowhead Stadium, beat the Kansas City Chiefs. After that, the playoffs hopes for the Pittsburgh Steelers have ended as follows. Blowout loss to the Patriots in the AFC title game, lost to the Blake Bortles-led Jaguars in the 2017 divisional round. 2018 didn't make the playoffs. 2019 didn't make the playoffs. 2020 undefeated 11-0 through the first 11 games and getting knocked out by Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns, the division rival who we all look at as kind of the laughingstock of the league. And by the way, doing that in blowout fashion. 2021 just barely snuck in the playoffs, only to get hosed by Mahomes and the Chiefs. 2022, missing the playoffs. And in this case, the Steelers are in grave danger of doing just that. They were 7-5 coming into this game. They were the 5 seed despite all the crap that had happened from the offensive side of the football this season. And here they sit today with a pretty tough schedule ahead. You still have to play the Indianapolis Colts, who are hot. You still got to play the Bengals, who all of a sudden, Jake Browning, hey, you might be the backup of the year this season in a year of a lot of backups. You still got to play the Seattle Seahawks. You still have to play the Baltimore Ravens, who some argue are the best team in the AFC. There is a legitimate shot that the Pittsburgh Steelers miss the playoffs. But hey, if the Steelers go 2-2 in those games, not sure they'll get in. Matter of fact, I'm almost certain they won't get in. But you get that winning record, Coach Tomlin. You'll clinch that above 500 or above season once again. A lot of great coaches have had losing records in all walks of life, in all sports. Steve Kerr's had a losing record. Popovich, we see what the Spurs are right now, has had a lot of losing records. Okay? Belichick's had losing records. All the great coaches in all sports, most of them. Eric Spoelstra, I believe, has had losing records with the Miami Heat. There's nothing wrong with going through a couple of years of sucking to get to the top. Ask the Houston Texans, who, by the way, don't have a culture close to as stable as the Pittsburgh Steelers. An organization in Pittsburgh, who, need I remind you, have hired 3 head coaches since 1969. So stability is the name of the Pittsburgh Steelers game when it comes to their culture and building a franchise the right way, which I love and admire. And I'm, by the way, in no way calling for Mike Tomlin's job. But you can't win the NFL nowadays with running game and defense. You could in 05 when the Steelers won the Super Bowl. You could in 08 when the Steelers won the Super Bowl. You could maybe do it in 2010 when the Steelers got to the Super Bowl and lost to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Nowadays, you can't. Come on, you can't win a Super Bowl. Can you pick it? You say, oh, Bryson, are you talking Super Bowl? Not this season. No, I never for one moment, even when I picked the Steelers to go in 11-6 and make the playoffs and even win a playoff game. That was my prediction for the Steelers season. 11-6, wildcard team, win a playoff game. I never once, even before the season when I had high expectations in that regard, had this team going anywhere in terms of the playoffs. But isn't that kind of, again, standard is the standard? Isn't Super Bowl the standard in Pittsburgh? I mean, they do, after all, have more than anybody aside from the team they played yesterday. And let's be honest, that was Brady. I think we all kind of agree at this point. That was like 90% Tom and 10% Bill. Winning is the name of the Steelers game. Has been for basically a half century since their first Super Bowl in the early 70s when they were really the first dynasty of the NFL in the Super Bowl era. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he's a phenomenal coach. But Deontay Johnson, who I have some issues with from a maturity standpoint, but Deontay Johnson said after that Cardinals game, yeah, we kind of took him lightly all week. That's on the coach. That's one thing I give the Cowboys a lot of credit on. It's one thing I give, in some respects, the Niners a lot of credit on. That, man, when they're playing bad teams, they mop the floor with it. They don't give them a second, a breathing room, don't give them any life whatsoever. They take care of the bad teams. Pittsburgh not only doesn't take care of the bad teams, they look out game planned, out prepared, outworked. And by the way, Mike Tomlin's a defensive coach. Defensive coaches tend to struggle running the offensive side of football. That's okay. Sean McDermott had Brian Dable, some of the best years of Josh Allen's career. It can be done. So you can still have a great quarterback, a great offensive play caller. But when you are trying to win a certain way, and that way is not the name of the NFL game in terms of the great most of the great quarterbacks in the NFL all of them have a shot to win the Super Bowl this year. Mahomes, Burrow's hurt. But you think about Jalen Hurts is great. Dak Prescott's great. Lamar Jackson's great. Justin Herbert's great, but he has a terrible coach. Josh Allen's great, but he has a coach who's probably going to get fired. Most of the great quarterbacks are in contention. If Burrow were healthy, I'd still say the Bengals were in contention. I mean, why do you think the expectations were so high for the Jets? Was it just because that great defense? It helped. But when you have Zach Wilson at quarterback last year and now this season and this Sunday, doesn't matter. Now, Kenny Pickett's better than Zach Wilson. I think even people who are down on Kenny Pickett would agree with that. But as I said a few weeks ago, I forget which loss it was for Pittsburgh. I think it was after the Cleveland loss when they lost 13-10. I said Kenny Pickett is a perfect representation of what the Steelers are now. Just good enough. They'll never suck. They'll never be embarrassing, but good enough. They'll be in the hunt. Every year, come week 17, week 18, they'll be in the hunt. Sometimes they'll get in, sometimes they won't. I didn't think that was the standard in Pittsburgh. So the fact of the matter is this. I don't know if the Steelers are going to make the playoffs. Right now, I'm pretty darn skeptical. Their odds are less than 50%. So still possible. I think it's like in the 30, 40 percentile. So still possible, but more unlikely than it is likely. Draft a quarterback. I mean, this draft is freaking loaded with them. Obviously, Caleb's going number 1. Drake May's probably going number 2. Penix Jr. not far behind. But if somebody like a Bo Nix were to slip, could you trade up and get a guy like Bo Nix who has far more upside? I'm not going to make Bo Nix out to be this once-in-a-generation type talent like a Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence, or an Andrew Luck. But Bo Nix has been very productive at Auburn and way more productive at Oregon. And he's got NFL traits. Big guy, strong arm, mobile. It's kind of what wins in today's NFL. Kenny Pickett's a little undersized, smaller hands, mobile, but not terribly accurate with the football, and kind of brittle physically. And we know smaller quarterbacks tend to struggle to stay healthy. Bo Nix is a bigger athlete. And if the Steelers don't draft a quarterback, then they'll be right back in the same position next year. And then at that point, it'll be uncomfortable for the Steelers front office, but do you at least consider going in a different direction? I think Mike Tomlin's a phenomenal coach. He will be and should be a first-ballot Hall of Famer. He's one of, if not he's the greatest coach in Steelers history in my mind, aside from Chuck Noll. But the game is changing, and like Belichick in New England, he's not moving with it. Now, I give Belichick a much shorter leash because he's had a longer time to adjust post-Brady, and unlike Tomlin, where Big Ben just got old and retired, Belichick get Brady out the door. So I'm harder on Belichick in that regard than I am Tomlin. But he's not adjusting. Whether or not he will or not remains to be seen. Whether or not the Steelers make the playoffs or not, gotta be honest with y'all, that was my first year as a Steelers fan, so maybe I don't have a whole lot of credibility in saying this. Don't really care. Because if they get in, they'll get hosed by Kansas City, Miami, Baltimore, Jacksonville. If Trevor comes back healthy, they can't go far in the playoffs. They're in the same spot as they were a year ago, and if they don't draft a quarterback, they'll be in this exact same spot again. It is what it is. The defense is still really good. Had a terrible first half, had a great second half. Minka Fitzpatrick playing with a broken hand, but that's kind of where the Steelers are at today. Just good enough. I didn't think that was the standard. I don't know. I'm new to the Steelers fan base. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I misinterpreted what the meaning of Pittsburgh Steelers football was. Only time will tell. Not this season, but this offseason will be very interesting for this football team, regardless of how far they go the last 4 games of the year. Once again, y'all, not live today and not using a regular mic. As a matter of fact, I'm literally, because of some connection issues with my laptop, I'm literally looking at my phone camera right now. So hopefully the quality's good. Hopefully the connection's good. If not, I sincerely apologize. But listen, even when I'm on the road, I want to try and get the shows in because there's a lot going on around the world of sports. I did want to talk about that guy who plays for the Lakers. What's his name? Is it LeBron? Right, that's his name, right? I've heard he's pretty good. I've never seen him, but I've heard he's a pretty good basketball player. So the Lakers played the Pelicans last night, and let's just nicely mop the floor with them, beat them by 44 points, 133-89. The Lakers won. And what was, by the way, the in-season tournament semifinal game. Adam Silver, again, just keeps knocking it out of the park with his in-season tournament. It's now in Las Vegas. The finals tomorrow. Congrats, by the way, to the Indiana Pacers and Tyrese Halliburton, who put on a show last night against the Milwaukee Bucks. give me a fun basketball game to watch. Rematch of one of those early 2000s finals between the Lakers, or it might have been late 90s, early 2000s. I think it was early 2000s, Lakers and Pacers, NBA finals. So, the young guys, Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Buddy Hield, against some of the vets, but, obviously great players, LeBron and Anthony Davis, and Austin Reeves is not a veteran, but, he kind of conducts himself like one. So it's kind of that type of energy. So here's what LeBron did last night. Just reading this off my laptop. Went for 38-5 in 23 minutes on efficient shooting for the field and efficient shooting from three-point range. I talked about LeBron on Wednesday's show when he played 40 minutes against the Phoenix Suns and dropped, I think it was it 31, 11, 8, and 5 steals. I mean, it was as if LeBron James was 30 years old. I would not know that. What's today, December 8th. I would not know by watching LeBron, if I had no idea about his age or anything, that in a year and 3 weeks he's going to be 40 years of age. What this man is doing, and I'll say the same thing that I did on Wednesday. We can talk go LeBron Jordan. Some people say Kobe. Some people say Kareem here and there. Like, whatever. I'm done debating that until LeBron's done. I'm done. Not because, obviously, I think LeBron's the GOAT, but it's not even that. It's the fact that what we are seeing this once in a generation, once in a lifetime player do is unlike anything we've seen in sports outside of Tom Brady. And the only difference I would say with Brady is because due to rule changes, due to how he played, he didn't take that many shots toward the end of his career, certainly didn't in Tampa Bay. And there was, and I don't blame the officials for doing this, but sometimes the officials would penalize a guy for hitting Tom a certain way when they probably wouldn't penalize a guy for hitting Derek Carr a certain way, right? So there was protection for Tom. That's not to take away anything from what Tom did. He's the greatest player in the history of team sports. That's what I've called him. But context should be provided in that regard. And the context for LeBron should be provided as well. This is not carving up the context, my weekly segment on Wednesdays. It never ceases to amaze me. And again, a game that featured Zion Williamson, who didn't play very well last night, but featured Zion Williamson, featured an all-star in Brandon Ingram, featured one of the better two guards in the NBA, certainly a top 10, I think it's fair to say, top 10 two guard in the NBA, and C.J. McCollum. Still a very productive player, great veteran leader for the Pelicans. And a game that featured Anthony Davis, who was nowhere to be seen offensively, but great defensively. All guys still the best player on the floor. This is what I said on Wednesday, that Jokic to me is far and away the best player in the world. I shouldn't say far and away. He is by a decent margin the best player in the world. It's his league, and we're all just not we. Like the players, the other star players are kind of just chasing Jokic. Number two, I still maintain that Steph Curry, what he's doing at age 35 is simply insane. And I don't think we're giving Steph enough credit for what he's doing at age 35 or KD credit for what he's doing in year 17, mind you, off an Achilles at age 35. But because what LeBron's doing. It is, I have never in my life seen an athlete. I try to contextualize it in the best way I can. I said it'd be like if you were working at a physically taxing job, not like this isn't to take a shot at like behind the desk jobs in any way, shape, or form. But as time goes on, the older you get, the better you get because of experience. You're going to be much more capable of doing certain things than somebody who just came in and it's their first day. But if it's a physically demanding job, I use the example like if you are a trucker or something, right? We know stuff like that becomes harder on your body as you get up there in age. What LeBron is doing is it would be like if a 65, 70-year-old truck driver was just as productive, just as good as the best 25-year-old truck driver. I've never seen anything like it in my life where he can be on a floor with not stars, not all stars, superstars, first ballot Hall of Famers, Kevin Durant the other day. Okay, Steph Curry in the past. He's still on a I shouldn't say night-to-night basis, but any given night can still be the best player. You can't say that about any player that's ever played. First of all, I think only 3-4 guys, including LeBron, have even gotten to year 21, much less look like this. I mean, Vince Carter got to year 21, was nowhere near what he was, certainly compared to LeBron. I think Robert Parrish got to year 21, obviously nowhere close to what he was with, especially in Boston. It is. I try to react to this the best way I can in the sense of like, how do you really make sense of this? It's LeBron's commitment. It's LeBron's work ethic, how he's taking care of his body, and just the fact that he is a physical freak. I will say about LeBron what I said about Brady when he was in year 21, year 22, somewhere around that time toward the end of his career, that I think he was built in a lab. I've said that before, but I'm starting to actually think. I certainly don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist because, yikes. But I'm starting to think that he just has genetic gifts other athletes simply do not have. 22 minutes, 38-5. Incredible. But it's going to be a very exciting final tomorrow. Indiana, LA Lakers get a rematch of the finals from about 2 decades ago. Shaq and Kobe Lakers versus Reggie Miller's Pacers. But it is. I don't want to entertain the GOAT debate until LeBron's done. I want to sit back. I don't know. This could be his last year. Who knows? Last year was almost his last career, or last year of his career. Obviously, he wants to play with Bronny, so he probably comes back next year. But he's in the twilight years of his career. I mean, again, guys don't get to year 21, much less look like this. But LeBron has other business ventures. But then again, if that were the case, Bron could leave today, and nobody would say a word, and rightfully so, because the fact that, you know what? You know why he's still playing as well as just because of his commitment to his body? Because he loves the game of basketball. That, to me, is one of the most admirable things about LeBron, in the sense that he's not doing this just to collect checks. Folks, LeBron's a billionaire. The last thing he needs is the money. He does it because he loves it. He does it because, like he said, he is in a personal mission to beat Father Time. Now, he's going to lose because all of us lose to Father Time. He is undefeated, after all, as the old cliche goes. But as LeBron said the other day, try to give him his first loss. Incredible performance by the King. Unbelievable. He's certainly unlike any basketball player I've ever seen. He's unlike any athlete I've ever seen from a longevity perspective, to still be this great. For those that are still hating on LeBron, still saying, well, he can't do this, can't. First of all, there's not a whole lot of things LeBron can't do. Just to be abundantly clear there. Enjoy it. Enjoy. I said it to the Brady haters thing. Guys, enjoy it. You may never see this again. I'm almost certain you will never see this again with LeBron. It's unbelievable that he's still this durable and still this great. Incredible stuff. And I'll tell you what, this season tournament, again, I think next year's in-season tournament, see, this is like kind of a dry run, so to speak. Like, let's see what this looks like. I'm kind of seeing where we're at in terms of what it means for the league, what it means for the players, kind of adjusting to it. Obviously, there was the group stage, and players going into the group stage like, we really don't know what we're doing. We just know that this game is bigger than a regular season, an average regular season game on a Tuesday or a Friday night. And but now that I think players, coaches, league execs kind of have like a good feel for what this is, I think 2024, the in-season tournament, it's gonna be off the charts. It's gonna be off the charts, especially this championship tomorrow, which I think tips off at 8:30 Eastern on ABC. Pacers and Lakers. That'll be very, very fun. Very fun. Very excited about it. Listen, it's what I love about Adam Silver, is that he is more than any commissioner, and Goodell does it to a certain degree. And I think Roger's a phenomenal commissioner. I think Adam Silver's a little better. I would prefer him a little more. And Manfred doesn't do this at all, is seeing a hole in your league and going out of your way to adjust it. Flopping was a problem, addressed. Take fouls were a problem, he addressed that. Lack of sense of urgency in the regular season, he addressed that too. Tanking, he's tried to address that with the play-in tournament. I mean, every single hole that the NBA has, he tries to fill it. And that is what any great commissioner does. The job of a commissioner, above all, is to make the game better and to market your league and make it and put your league in a better place when you leave than when you found it, when you took over the job. Adam Silver's 1,000% done that. That's not a shot at David Stern, who is an awesome commissioner, but Adam Silver's done a fantastic job and should be commended for it. He aced the bubble, he aced the play-in tournament, he's aced the in-season tournament. Props to Adam Silver. Shifting back to the NFL before I get into my predictions, again, a little bit of a shorter show just because recording on the phone, on the road. And I hope the connection is good. Hopefully you can hear me loud and clear, because I want to put together the best show I can for you, because I never want to cheat the audience, because you guys take the time out of your day to watch this, so it's up to me to give you the best show that I can possibly give you. I want to talk about Sean McDermott briefly. So, yikes. So, Tyler Dunn, he's an NFL reporter for Substack, which is Substack page of NFL writer Tyler Dunn. This is the guy who wrote it. And he put together a piece, very lengthy, but my gosh, is it juicy. My gosh, is it packed with information about the Bills head coach, guy by the name of Sean McDermott. So this is, I'm reading off of NFL.com. So this was about as scathing a report as I've ever seen on a head coach, with the NFL coach, with the exception of Urban Meyer, because Urban Meyer just got bad. There was just bad thing after bad thing, and it all happened like within a year. Like it was a disaster. Apparently, according to this report, 4 years ago in 2019 Bills training camp, there was a meeting. There's a team meeting. Sean McDermott, head coach, leading the meeting, and he was talking about he was stressing the importance of communication between players. And I'm not kidding when I make this up. Like when I saw this, I'm like, oh, this is like somebody made some meme or took something out of context. It's like, no, this is actually what happened according to multiple sources close to the situation, written by Tyler Dunn. McDermott, this is according to NFL.com. An emotional Buffalo Bills head coach, Sean McDermott, acknowledged regret on Thursday for crediting the 9/11 hijackers for their coordination during a team meeting 4 years ago. McDermott had cited that the hijackers, while stressing the importance of communication, communication during the attacks of September 11th, 2001. Wow. There's certain things that come around, like I don't even know how to react to that. If he wanted to use an example regarding life and death situations, if you wanted to use a war example, I mean, he could have referenced, I don't know, D-Day, where America won. Something that we did good, something that good happened in the world, not one of the worst days in the history of this great country. And nonetheless, now the Bills don't play in New York City. No team plays in New York City. Even the Giants and Jets play in the Meadowlands. But Sean McDermott's team plays in New York, the upstate New York and Buffalo. Like this hits very close to home for Bills fans, for all New Yorkers, for this country in general. I mean, listen, I'm 20 years old. I wasn't around for the attacks when they happened, but just even to this day, the lasting trauma of those attacks. I don't want to go too deep or too dark, but for that to be the example, and again, according to Tyler Dunn, Sean McDermott called in his players the next day and said that he apologized. But there's apparently some other stuff coming out of this report. So it's really bad. So apparently he was having issues with what's the guy's name? The defensive coordinator that left, Leslie Frazier, who, remember I talked about in this show, I'm like, this is weird. This is why I didn't buy the Bills this season, because a bunch of stuff went wrong for them during the offseason. When just in the middle of the night, Leslie Frazier is no longer a defensive coordinator for the Bills. I'm like, huh? Where'd that come from? That's just, okay. Dable left to be a head coach for the Giants. That's one thing. Just left. Had no idea it was evidently Sean McDermott. Leslie Frazier has some issues. Evidently Sean McDermott and Josh Allen don't have the greatest relationship. This sort of, again, according to this article, which is in depth, I encourage everybody to read it, it paints Sean McDermott in a light that is very rigid, that is very my way or the highway. This is how we will do it. That's not to say you shouldn't set standards. You should set standards as a coach. But notice most of the guys that are winning, most of the guys are very pro player. I'm in it for my guys. Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, Nick Sirianni. Much as Sirianni drives us crazy, nobody can deny that the guy is in love with his players, loves his guys. Sean McVay is having a phenomenal head coaching year by the Rams standards, given where we thought they'd be coming into the season. But Mike McCarthy loves his guys. I'm not saying Sean McDermott doesn't love his guys, but when you're into yourself and how you do things more than you are a winning formula, you're taking for granted your players. You're certainly taking for granted your franchise quarterback in Josh Allen, who's a superstar in this league. And it just adds the case. He needs to go. Now, the top of that list in terms of the reason I think Sean McDermott should be fired, and I think will be fired, assuming the Bills miss the playoffs, which check their schedule. I think they are. They still got to play the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Dolphins. I mean, the end of the schedule for the Bills is absolutely brutal. Even the easy game, quote unquote, is against the Chargers, who, they do have Justin Herbert. But it's the fact that in so many of these games, Buffalo has been absolutely atrocious from a situational standpoint. You think about even in their wins. Remember the Tampa Bay win? They kept giving up those 4th downs, and Baker nearly completed the Hail Mary to win the game in Buffalo on a short week on a Thursday night. Mac Jones led a game-winning drive for this against this Bills team, going 75 yards to do so. They were bad situation against the Eagles, terrible situation against the Broncos. Like, this stuff comes back to bite you. They were terrible situation against the Jets all the way back in week 1 when they lost to Zach Wilson in the Aaron Rodgers Achilles game. This is, and they weren't terribly good situations a year ago. I compared Sean McDermott to Mark Jackson in the sense that, hey, Mark Jackson's good at repairing a historically, at least recently, dysfunctional franchise, which he did for my Golden State Warriors. He was great for that. And developing young guys, building a culture. He wasn't the guy to take that team over the top. Steve Kerr was. Now, I still maintain, and I will always maintain, Mark Jackson should still have a head coaching job in the NBA. He's undeniably one of the 30 best basketball coaches, I think, on planet Earth for the NBA. And I think Sean McDermott's one of the 32 best NFL coaches. He's not incompetent. He's not a bad coach. But his ability to connect with players, at least as detailed in this article, again, using 9/11 as an example, his lack of situational awareness. I mean, the 12 guys in the field on the field goal against Denver, I mean, it all compiles into, can we win a Super Bowl with this guy? Because we have a Super Bowl quarterback. Listen, Josh Allen's never been there, but listen, he's been an MVP candidate in the past, in years past. He is leading the league in touchdown passes. That matters, even with the turnovers, which I've criticized Josh Allen a lot for the reckless plays. Some of it's coaching. Wasn't quite as reckless when Dable was there. It all compounds. I think the Bills are going to and should move on from Sean McDermott this offseason. But yeah, it's a lot of folks seem to be kind of surprised with where the Bills are at this season. I had them at 9-8. I said, this is an average football team. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are an awesome duo that's going to get them a couple of wins. Maybe they shouldn't. But yeah, this is why I said, I remember when the Bills started 3-1, and when they housed Miami, and the Dolphins were like the hottest team in the league, and they housed them all the way back in week 4. I said, look, I think the Bills are good. I never said the Bills were bad. I said, but I've seen them get off to hot starts and then absolutely nosedive at the end of seasons. Call me crazy. I'm going to wait for a second to see where this goes. And we see where they're at now. Big game on the road in Kansas City. A lot of stake, a lot on the line to try and put themselves in a position to get back in the playoff mix. And even if they win that game, they got to face Dallas next week. And then in week, I think is it week 18? They still got to play the Dolphins again. So not great for the Buffalo Bills and for Sean McDermott, but it's time for change to be made, and I think it's going to be made. All right. So if y'all are ready, if I can pull up the background music, and I'm like scrolling down my phone to do this, but if we're ready to go, let's go and do NFL predictions. Week 14, here we go. If I can get the background music on. All righty. We will start with the Houston Texans taking on the New York Football Jets. So the Jets have been, to say the very least, topic of conversation this week for a lot of leaks that have come out, especially regarding quarterback Zach Wilson, saying that, hey, Zach Wilson doesn't want to play. When he was asked by Robert Saleh and some guys to go back out there, like he's hesitant to do so. Well, the reports come out earlier this week. Zach Wilson going to start on Sunday against the Houston Texans. So, listen, it's turmoil. It's a disaster with the Jets. Then again, it's it's an organization that's mostly led by Aaron Rodgers. I can't say I'm terribly shocked. This is kind of how it went in Green Bay. And now the Packers are playing well, and his old coach McCarthy's doing great in Dallas. Common denominator is Aaron. I think Aaron is kind of the Urban Meyer of the NFL to a certain degree in that regard, where not trouble, but he's not a bad human being, but controversy always follows his way. Dysfunction always follows his way, no matter how successful he is or he isn't. Listen, Houston comes off a big win last week against the Denver Broncos. Their defense, Derek Stingley Jr. is playing very good football. Will Anderson is right back in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year. We know what C.J. Stroud's done this season. He's been absolutely phenomenal. He's been the best rookie quarterback I've personally ever seen, probably in the history of the NFL. Listen, it's gonna be crappy conditions in New York, as it as it was last week with the Falcons and the Jets, the good news is we'll at least see one great quarterback, and so I will take him to win. Give me the Houston Texans to win this football game 24-12 to double up the New York Football Jets and win this game to get to 8-5 and potentially end up tying the Jacksonville Jaguars for the division lead. Houston 24, Jets 12. Let's move on to our next matchup. Big one. A really, really sneaky, interesting game, okay? LA Rams and the Baltimore Ravens from M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore, Maryland. So the Ravens in this game are favored, I think, by 7.5. Again, I've got my phone here, so the odds are not right in front of me, but 7.5, Baltimore's favored. So the Rams are kind of in a similar situation as the Packers are, where they're 3-6, they look dead in the water, and all of a sudden they reel off 3 straight wins, get a big win against the Cleveland Browns with Myles Garrett in the lineup, by the way, at home last week. But this is going to be one of their toughest tests of the year. At Baltimore, coming off of a bye. Now, Lamar Jackson has kind of been in and out of practice this week. He's sick. Lamar gets sick a lot this time of year. It's wishing the very best, but looks like Lamar is going to be able to play nonetheless. Listen, the Ravens defense is among the top 3 defenses in the NFL in terms of scoring defense. Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, both have had great years. Front four in Baltimore is excellent. Back end is excellent. They're very well coached. This Baltimore Ravens offense, they will miss Mark Andrews. That is my big concern for them. But I simply don't think the Rams have enough bodies to really expose the deficiencies of Baltimore. So give me the Baltimore Ravens in this game to cover and to win 31-20 over the Los Angeles Rams. Let's move on to the NFC South matchup. I have to be completely honest, I don't plan on watching a ton of this game, but then again, I've been a little bit of a Bryce Young apologist, so to speak. But Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints. So listen, Carolina is the first team officially eliminated from playoff contention. Nobody's more excited about that than the Chicago Bears, because they have obviously Carolina's pick, which they hope will be number 1 overall. And if that's the case, then Caleb Williams is going to the Windy City. But the Jets very much in the mix for a playoff spot for that NFC South division. They're a game back at the Atlanta Falcons after a really tough loss to Atlanta last week and losing to the Detroit Lions on Sunday. So listen, this is a home game. Saints got to pick this one up, okay? The Saints have been struggling up and down the season offensively. I'm not sure Derek Carr is going to be able to go. By the way, they are 5-point favorites in this football game. It will be nothing short of an abomination if the Saints are to blow this game and lose. I get divisional familiarity is a real thing, but if there's any more dysfunctional franchise than the Carolina Panthers, please show them to me, at least from this season. So I feel good about this for the Saints. Give me New Orleans to cover 27-17 over the Carolina Panthers. Saints win 27-17. It is now time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. It's the one game that I've absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. And that's what we're going to do today in Carving It Up. That's what we do. Indianapolis Colts, Cincinnati Bengals. This is a tricky one because both of these teams are coming off of big wins. Both of these teams are on their backup quarterbacks, and both of these teams are very much alive in the AFC wildcard picture. Right now, the Colts are sitting there, I think, is the 6th seed. I'm sorry. Colts are sitting there as the 6th seed coming into this week. Gardner Minshew Mania continues. Big win on Sunday against the Tennessee Titans. As for the Bengals, just a day later in Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence did get hurt in that game, but with 5 minutes to go. So they had a healthy Trevor, facing up against him for the first 55 minutes. Jake Browning had a phenomenal outing, throwing for over 350 yards. Ran for a touchdown and threw for a touchdown and didn't turn the ball over. So he was very good. And so this Bengals offense, listen, they still do have weapons. They still have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and Joe Nick. Listen, they're at home. I think they're 2.5-point favorites. I know I've picked against the Colts a lot this season, and I love Shane Steichen. I think he's in the Coach of the Year race. I just have a weird feeling the Bengals are going to somehow find a way to win this game and just further try and bury my Steelers and put us out of our misery. Maybe that has something to do with it too. But I like Cincinnati's weapons. I really like Cincinnati's defensive personnel. Lou Amorono is a great defensive coordinator. So I will take the Bengals. It's Bryson's Bleak Bets, but nonetheless, I will take the Cincinnati Bengals to win this game 27-20 over the Indianapolis Colts. And then all of a sudden next week, we're like, hey, could the Bengals make the playoffs without Joe Burrow? We'll see. Looking at our next matchup, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. Big matchup from Atlanta because the Buccaneers are able to win. I think that would put them at first place in the NFC South. If not, it would put them at a dead-even tie at 6-7 with Atlanta. But the Falcons in this game are 2.5-point favorites. So, listen, it's tight. Both teams are relatively evenly matched. I've commended Baker Mayfield all season long in the sense that I have always believed he was more of a backup. Now I will elevate him. Baker lovers, you'll maybe roll your eyes at this, but I believe this, into the low-end starter, high-end backup category, which that group, to me, involves guys like Gardner Minshew. For a while, Andy Dalton was in that category. Like, you don't really want him to be your starter, but if he's your backup and you just need him to come in and win a couple games for you, you feel good. Baker has elevated his stock this year more than any other year of his career, I believe, in terms of his maturity, in terms of his buy-in. He's been pretty productive this season, given the circumstances. First receiver since Jerry Rice to have 10 straight seasons to start his career of over 1,000 yards receiving. So congrats to Mike Evans. But listen, I think Atlanta's defense is playing really good football right now. I think Bijan Robinson needs to get the football more, but he's been effective. Kyle Pitts finally caught a touchdown recently. I like Drake London. Really like most, if not all, Atlanta's skill position players offensively. Jonnu Smith is there and making plays. It's Desmond Ridder, though. If the game comes down to Desmond Ridder versus Baker Mayfield, then I'm going to have to roll with Baker because he's been better this season, better overall, obviously. So I'm going to take the upset here. I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win this game 22-20 over the Atlanta Falcons, get to 6-7, drop the Falcons to 6-7, and get a big-time W and tie them at the top of the NFC South Division. Tampa Bay 22, Atlanta 20. Moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland, very interesting to me. 3-point favorites. So is Vegas saying they think C.J. Beathard and Joe Flacco are kind of on the same level? Because if that's the case, I mean, it's kind of hard to disagree with that. Not a shot at both guys. Joe Flacco's a Super Bowl champion and a Super Bowl MVP. And C.J. Beathard, from what I've heard, is a good dude, has been a solid backup, was in San Francisco for a while there, I think backing up Jimmy Garoppolo. So again, another battle of the backups in the AFC between two teams, the wildcard hunt. This is big for Cleveland. They need to get a win and start to kind of change the momentum because they were 7-3. They've had some more quarterback injuries, I should say, on top of the already injured Deshaun Watson. Joe Flacco came in, again, very new to that playbook in Cleveland. Played well enough. He made some plays here and there. They still have Amari Cooper. You still have guys like Kareem Hunt in the lineup. So you still have some weapons. You still have some playmakers. You still have a fantastic offensive line. Listen, Jacksonville's going to miss Trevor. It's going to be some crappy conditions in Cleveland. I simply don't see a scenario in which the Jaguars are able to win this game. So give me the Cleveland Browns to win it. Again, they're 3-point favorites. I'll take them to cover. Jacksonville may keep it a little close because I don't trust Cleveland's quarterback play as much as I do Jacksonville's quarterback play. I don't trust Jacksonville's all that much without Trevor Lawrence, without the man, the myth, the legend, as one put it, the prince who was promised. But I will take Cleveland Browns this one, 24-19. Browns win and get to 8-5 and continue to put my Steelers, hopefully, out of our country. Detroit Lions, Chicago Bears in the NFC North. Detroit in this game is a 3-point favorite on the road, and so it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for my upset of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, give me the Chicago Bears in this matchup. 28-24, they get the upset over the Detroit Lions. And I jokingly say my Detroit Lions because I picked them to get to the NFC title game. Here's why I'm going with the upset. So Chicago's coming off of a bye. And I know Justin Fields didn't have a very impressive outing against the Minnesota Vikings 2 weeks ago on Monday Night Football. Had the 2 quarter turnovers. The Bears did not score a touchdown this game. They won just by 4 field goals. So props especially to Chicago. But look. There we go. Took a last-second comeback by Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions to come back and win that football game. So hats off to Jared Goff of the Lions for doing that. But I am seriously, I've been sounding this alarm for a few weeks now. I am seriously concerned about this Lions defense. So they gave up the 38 points to a Chargers offense that all of a sudden can't score right now. That's in large part due to their OC, by the way. They gave up 29 to Green Bay. They gave up 28 to a Saints offense that's dealing with some quarterback issues and quarterback turmoil. So listen, this Lions defense was trending upwards at the start of the year, trending downwards, looking a little bit like that defense that we saw a year ago. So I think Justin Field, the Bears, will use the cold weather to their advantage. The Lions obviously being a dome team. I think Justin Field is able to make a few more plays than Jared Goff in this game, but more than anything, I have massive concerns about this Lions defense. So, upset of the week, put it up one more time. Bears 28, Lions 24, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I got. Chicago in my upset of the week. Moving on. The afternoon slate of games, the Seattle Seahawks, the San Francisco 49ers. Niners are a big old favorite, -11 against the division rival Seattle Seahawks at home. So, funny thing about San Francisco is their last two blowout wins. Their last two blowout wins against, if not Super Bowl contenders, which Dallas and Philly clearly are. I think Jacksonville is, if Trevor's healthy, but even if you don't think the Jags are a contender, they're still a very good football team. They're still a viable playoff team in that AFC. They blew out Dallas. The next week, they lost to Cleveland. They blew out the Jacksonville Jaguars. The next week, controlled the game throughout, but wouldn't we think 27-14 seems closer than we might expect for the Niners at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are in the worst division in football? There's some validity to both those points. But listen, Seattle's desperate, just like they were against Dallas. They do have a rest advantage, 10 days off before this 49ers game. But I don't know, man. Geno Smith, if you look at his numbers against San Francisco, he's 0-4 now against them. Interceptions or touchdown interception ratio is abysmal. So is the passer rating. So I have no reason to believe that on the road with the hottest team in football, with the best team in football, that Geno's just all of a sudden just going to turn it completely around, even despite that performance against the Dallas Cowboys just a couple Thursdays ago. So I will take the 49ers to win, and not absolutely humiliate Seattle, but win relatively comfortably, 34-20 over the Seahawks. Seahawks defense has been down this season, so I think San Francisco is able to expose that. Niners win over Seattle, 34-20, and the Seahawks freefall, which I predicted weeks ago, even though I picked them to make the playoffs, is starting to occur, ladies and gentlemen. Minnesota Vikings and the Las Vegas Raiders. So the best news I got this week is that Joshua Dobbs is going to start. Space Dobbs, the Pastronaut, Mr. Domination, whatever nickname you want to give to my man, Robert Joshua Dobbs. He is going to be on that football field starting for Minnesota against the Vegas Raiders on Sunday. In a very eventful Las Vegas. They got the champion Aces. They're going to host the Super Bowl. They're hosting the in-season tournament finals in the NBA. So Vegas, as you might imagine, is a busy city, but it's very busy right now in the world of sports. Listen, Vegas is coming in kind of in a free fall right now. They obviously fired Josh McDaniels a month ago. The new interim guys come in, done a pretty good job. Antonio Pierce. The defense has been better as of late, but listen, the fact of the matter is, Aiden O'Connell's a quarterback. He is a rookie. I'm not going to be too hard on the kid. They do have weapons like Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow and Josh Jacobs, he's having a little bit of a down season. I just like how the Minnesota defense is playing right now. Ever since Brian Flores kind of got them to really buy into a scheme, get used to a scheme, Minnesota's been playing really, really good defense as of late, and Vegas simply can't generate enough offense. So I think my man Robert Joshua Dobbs will get the job done. Give me the Vikings to cover the minus 3-point spread. 23-17 over the Las Vegas Raiders. Vikings win 23-17 and keep themselves right smack dab in the middle of that NFC wild card picture. Next matchup, they got another divisional game. Denver Broncos and LA Chargers. So this could potentially be an elimination game for both, because if the Chargers lose this game, given their upcoming schedule, they'd fall to 5-8. They're done, dead in the water. It's over. See ya. For Denver, if they fall to 6-7, don't have a whole lot of tiebreakers right now in the AFC, especially given the fact that they were riding that 5-game winning streak. Russell was playing well, playing as a good game manager, and this defense was rolling. I said if they lose the turnover battle, which they have been, or which they haven't been in the 5-game winning streak, if they lose the turnover battle to the Texans, they will lose. That's exactly what happened. The good news, though, for the Broncos is it took Russell having one of the worst games of his career in terms of throwing the ball to the other team. He only has 5 interceptions, 5-3 interception games in his NFL career. So last week you can call, given Russ's history, kind of an aberration. But here's what I'm looking at for this. Listen, the Chargers are desperate. Yes, they're struggling offensively. And yes, they look good defensively against the Patriots, which my Steelers were evidently incapable of even doing that. Let's not talk Steelers too much and make me even more depressed. I just have a feeling Denver's offense is going to get it right. I think the Chargers' struggles with Kellen Moore calling plays is going to only continue. And listen, I think the Chargers' defense is what we kind of thought they were coming into the season, which is not good situationally, not very well coached, despite the talent. Khalil Mack having a quietly great year. I say quietly because the Chargers have been a big disappointment once again. But I will put up the final score here. I will take the Denver Broncos to win this one, even with the Chargers as favorites. Listen, if you want to win money, bet against the Chargers. Even if you pick them to win outright, whatever the line is, bet against the Chargers, you're probably going to win some money. Last week's an aberration. Again, they did play the Patriots, and my team was unable to beat them. But once again, Broncos keep themselves in the AFC wildcard mix. They beat their division rival Chargers 27-20. And we'll finish with 2 huge games. Getting ratings bonanza. Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, another matchup between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, the two guys that I thought a year ago at this time might have been like the two faces of the league. Mahomes being the best, absolutely, and Josh Allen being the number two. But since Josh Allen had a disappointing playoff run, the turnovers have only increased. That said, though, the Bills' last game against the Philadelphia Eagles, albeit a struggling defense, especially in the secondary, Josh Allen, to use the name of the show, absolutely carved them up in every which way. Stephon Diggs was on the same wavelength as him. Aside from literally the last play of the game, or last Buffalo Bills offensive play of the game, so was Gabe Davis. So Bills come off a bye. Sean McDermott's come off a bye. I think it's 5-0, but you got the noise around this organization. You also consider the fact that Kansas City, this is not like a must-win. This is not a situation where the Chiefs are just done if they lose. They'd be 8-5. It's not worst-case scenario. They'll still win their division. But, man, you lose two straight, and you lose two straight to a team quarterbacked by Jordan Love, who's an ascending player but still some questions, and then a Bills team who might fire their head coach at the end of the season. You need to start stacking wins. You need to at least give yourselves a shot to get that one seed and to once again host the AFC playoffs, which they have done every single year in the Patrick Mahomes era. I think it's going to be a classic battle between two desperate teams for different reasons, two awesome quarterbacks, but Mahomes gets the advantage. He gets the better of Josh Allen at the end and leads a game-winning drive. Give me the Chiefs. That's 1-point favorite. Thank you very much. That was almost my if I were a Bettin Man game. But give me Kansas City 28-23 over the Buffalo Bills. The Bills season will effectively be over. Kansas City will get right back into that divisional race, one seed race in a tightly compacted top of the AFC. And finally, it is now time for my favorite segment on Carving Up Live.
You're not a betting man.
If I were a betting man, I'd look in that game in the eye between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. So Dallas, a 3.5-point favorite at home. So Vegas is that close to saying, folks, neutral side, no line. It's a pick 'em. These teams are dead even. And in many ways they are. They both have fantastic quarterbacks. Both coaches are having a great year in their own way. Both offensive lines are very good. I like Philly's weapons more than Dallas's, but I like Dallas's defense more than Philly's. And by the way, both have very good kickers. And that certainly could matter in a game like this. Both quarterbacks in the MVP discussion reign Dakota Prescott, who's leading it, in my eyes, by a significant margin, and Jalen Hurts, who, yes, had a down game against the Niners. Folks, everybody has a down game against the 49ers. Every great quarterback, with the exception of Joe Burrow and the weird Monday night great game by Kirk Cousins. I'm still kind of trying to figure out how that happened, but it happened. But other than that, great quarterbacks, or even very good quarterbacks, struggle mightily against that Niners defense. So, listen, again, both Philadelphia and Dallas defense got absolutely torched this past week. Dallas against Seattle, and then Philly against San Francisco. Obviously, the difference was Dallas was able to match that great offense and come out with the win. This is one of those games for Dallas where that Eagles game back in Week 9, November 5th, Week 9, was huge for Dallas's morale in the sense that maybe there's a little bit of self-doubt coming in that, yeah, I think we're good. Can we hang with the big boys? They were inches, literal inches, from not just hanging with the big boys, from beating the big boys in Philadelphia, which up until last week would look darn near impossible. It hadn't lost a home game since the middle of last season, had the Philadelphia Eagles. So that was a big confidence boost. Since then, they haven't lost. Okay, they've dominated the bad teams. They won a game against a good, desperate Seattle Seahawks football team. They have a schematic advantage, at least a rest advantage, 10 days off to the Eagles, 7 days off. For Dallas, if you want to prove you are truly on the same level as the top contenders in the NFC, you can't compete with Philadelphia. You got to beat Philadelphia. It's as simple as that. Dak Prescott, I think you're the MVP. But if you want to prove to the doubters, you want to prove to haters that you can be or should be the MVP, you got to win this game, given the fact that you carved up, using that reference again, this defense the last time you guys met. 374 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a pass rating, I believe, of 115, 160. So he played outstanding. But, there's always the asterisk with Dak. There's always going to be excuses. There's always going to be the people that bring the things that people bring out. Well, he can't do this. He can't do this. Well, what I'm watching, there's not a whole lot Dak can't do. Commanding the offense, throwing the football down the field, not turning it over, using his legs, the whole bit. He's been absolutely fantastic. This is going to be the battle of the quarterbacks. This is going to be a fireworks show in every sense of the word. And when it's all said and done, it is going to be rain Dakota Prescott getting the W. High-scoring game. Cowboys cover. If I were a bet man, take them to cover -3.5 and to win outright. 34-28 over the Philadelphia Eagles. If I were a bet man, take the Cowboys minus 3.5. And of course, to win outright, but here's the score. 34-28 in what is the game of Week 14, one of the biggest games of the NFL season. Cowboys win 34-28 over Philly. I can't wait to watch that game. And by the way, I'm actually going to be on, shout out to the Cowboys camp fan here at the Grid. I'm actually going to be on their pregame show and their halftime show, and I potentially at points throughout that football game as well. So very, very excited to be on with the guys. All right. There you go. So I just recorded my first episode of Carving Up Live with my phone. Hopefully it came out looking good for those. The quality was fine. The audio quality and the video quality was fine for those that are watching at the time that the show is airing, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific time on Twitter, as well as the Carving Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. I'll be back in my studio recording with my laptop, with my microphone, which is propping up my phone right now. I will be back in the studio on Monday to react to a lot of football, potentially even the NBA in-season championship game. So very, very exciting show on Monday. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button right there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. We are just, last time I checked, we are 5 subscribers away. 5 from 600. I cannot thank you guys enough. The goal, as I mentioned before the football season, is to try to get to 1,000 subscribers, 1K, by Super Bowl 58, which is February the 11th. We are 5 subscribers away from getting to 600. So we've made a lot of progress. Thank you so much for those that have contributed and supported the show. Greatly appreciate it. And be sure to go subscribe to Carving It Up. And just as important, go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcast, via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. Looking forward to Monday's show, and my Lord, am I looking forward to this football weekend, if nothing else, to get my mind off my Pittsburgh Steelers. Just 4 more weeks, Steelers Nation, 4 more weeks, hopefully just 4. I don't know if we'll be in the playoffs or not, but 4 more weeks. Hang in. There's the 4 fingers. You can only see 3. There we go. 4 fingers. And we'll be, we won't have to suffer through more bad offensive football. And hopefully not in 2024 either. I'll be in a better mood on Monday, I think. If Dak wins, if the Cowboys win, I'll definitely be in a good mood. See y'all then. Stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And of course, please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America. We just had some shootings this week. Absolutely devastating. I'm very, very passionate about this issue. For the love of God, we've got to address this. So let's do our part. Let's address it at the ballot box when we get the chance, and let's address it with those who are in power and make our voices heard. So call your state representatives and senators and tell them that this is not okay what's going on, and make some change here in this great country. All right, I will see you guys on Monday. Again, hopefully not a ton of shows recorded by my phone, but again, we'll see what happens moving forward. But I'll see y'all then. Stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. Once again, God bless you all. Peace out. I'm not saying fire Tomlin. I'm just saying something. Okay, something. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.